Alright, so today we are learning how to visually journal. I'm going to be using an example from one of my past students. The first thing you're going to do is you are going to fill out the journal entry. You're going to be given a piece of paper that's going to be blank like this with lines. You're going to write a journal entry about a recent or significant memory that you have. It could be a memory of a trip you took, a birthday party, moving to a new city, starting middle school, the birth of a sibling or a cousin, anything like that, etc. You're going to write at least 4 sentences telling the story of your memory. Then go through your sentences and circle each noun and pronoun. Draw at least 5 different nouns that you have circled. Your friends or your family would count as one. So if you said something like, my family and I went to the zoo, the group of your family and you, that is one illustration, okay? Then on the back, you're going to sketch these out. So I'm using hers as an example. So here is what something like yours might look like. Just sketching out really quickly different ideas. And I kind of sketched it out like a middle schooler would sketch these out, just practicing how to draw these things. You might practice and you might make a binder look like this and then try to make it look like this and then make it look like that. Same with the Chromebook, like this, that, and the other thing. Okay? After you are done figuring out how to draw it, you're going to actually draw it. And you're going to get a white piece of paper and you're going to draw it. Now, here's the thing. I want to show you 2 finished examples. This one was done and it's okay. It was drawn, it's drawn okay, but the objects are all very, very small. There's a lot of negative space, a lot of background. Whereas this one was drawn and it really fills up the space. The objects are much bigger, so you can see that, you know, the objects are much, much bigger. They are so big they have to overlap, and so the composition is a lot stronger with this one because all of the objects take up more space. Okay, so to review, step 1 is to write your paragraph and then circle all of the nouns. Middle school, mom, backpack, binder, Chromebook, agenda book, lockers, teacher, schedule. Then illustrate that on the back, just figuring out how to sketch those. And it doesn't have to be nouns. You don't have to necessarily draw only nouns. You can draw emotions and concepts, but it's more difficult to do that. So it's however you like. After you have practiced sketching, pencil it out on your big piece of paper. Once you're done penciling it out, you're going to take a Sharpie and trace everything that is in pencil. This is another reason why if you do really small drawings, it's harder to trace with a Sharpie. And no, we do not have any pen-sized Sharpies. So you do have to trace with a regular size Sharpie. So trace all that out. And I'm just going to fast forward and come back when it's all traced. Alright, so after you have finished going over everything in Sharpie, be sure you erase all of the pencil lines. You don't want those. They do show up and it just looks sloppy. So the Sharpie does a great job of making it look nice and clean and have a great contour line, a great outline. But you want to make sure that any of those pencil lines that are still showing up, you get those erased. Okay? So just take the back of your pencil or your art eraser and get that all cleaned up before you start coloring in. Once this is finished, you're going to use crayons and you're going to color it in. Be sure you color in neatly and completely. All right, I'm going to start coloring this in, and I'll show you when I'm done. All right, so this is the finished colored in. Now the thing is even if you want to leave a spot white, you need to go through and color it in white. And the reason why you need to do that is because we are going to be using watercolors to fill in the background. Okay, so we're going to give it a real Marc Chagall, abstract, dreamy, surrealist, visual journaling-ish background. Okay, so now that this is all colored in, it looks neat and complete, we're going to use our watercolors. Now, the way that I use watercolors is I do take it out of the tray. If you want the tray for mixing, you can have it back, but I leave it out because it makes it nicer to dry. It's easier for it to dry. It doesn't get all mixed up when it does dry. When you use watercolors, you're going to first, if you don't already know this, some of you may already know this, some of you may not, but I'm going to tell you in case you don't or in case you forgot. You put a drop of water in each color before you even start. Okay? Then what we're going to do is we're going to do what's called a wet on wet technique. So you're going to paint just clean water onto your paper. Don't paint over your images except for like here where it's Sharpie and it's just Sharpie. Paint around your images. I know it's kind of hard to see, but like when you kind of angle it, you can kind of see where it's wet. And I'm going to show you what happens when you have a wet paper and when you don't have a wet paper. So I'm going to put this, I'm going to put water all around here in the bottom, and then over here in the top I'll show you what it looks like when it's not. So the wet on wet technique does is it makes the water spread out and looks very watery. Okay, you want to make sure that you kind of stay with like colors. Don't go from orange to blue because it's just going to end up mixing to a brown. Okay, so you want to avoid opposite colors. So I'm going to start with blue. See how that just spreads out? Looks very cloudy. And then a purple. See how that spreads? And if you've got it really watery and it's really soaked into the paper, you can even tilt it and it will pretty much stay only where you put the water. It's not going to go on where the crowns are because the wax resists the water, and it's also going to stay off the dry surfaces for the most part. That was just a little tap and it really spread out, and it pretty much stays where I put it there, where I put the water. I'm going to stick with purples and blues. I might move into a little bit of green because green sits next to blue on the color wheel. And I can tell I'm getting dry up here, so I'm going to go and rinse my brush out and put some more clean water on. The water doesn't have to be like completely clean. If it's a little used, that's fine. I'm just going to put a little green up there, a little blue. Let me show you the exact same deal over here, okay? So over here I did not put water down. So when I brush it on, it stays as a line. It stays really dark. It doesn't spread out. And then when I add my blue next to it, again, it will mix, but it's really more for coloring in. It's less for making a background. Okay. Now I can spread that out just by putting clean water and spread it out, and it will lighten and spread out a little bit, but it's not going to have that cloudy kind of look to it, and you're not going to be able to really get that mixing that you get with this. I'm going to see if I can get a little bit of this glare off there so that you can see a little better. I'm going to stick with the blues, purples, and just a little bit of green up here. I might do a little bit of red and purple down there because red and purple are together on the color wheel. Now my water's getting a little dirty. It is coming out purple. So I would, if I was sharing my water, we would probably want to go ahead and get a fresh cup of water. Now you only need to get a fresh cup of water 3 times during class, okay? If you're getting more than 3 times, you're just wasting time. Now you saw how I didn't wet my whole paper at once, because by the time I got over here it would have dried too much. So this is a little too much. It's starting to pool. So I'm going to take a towel or a paper towel and just dab it and blot it. Just blot some of that up. Okay. Because the idea here is that, you know, these are the objects of the memory just kind of floating around in your headspace. And with that nice black outline of the Sharpies and the large objects and that are solidly colored in, that really pop out from the background, and now we have a beautifully visual journal of a first day at middle school. So this is just one example of one memory that you could do. Obviously I don't want you to copy mine. I want you to do your own thing in your own way. It can be your own memory, it can be completely different. If you do first day of middle school, I expect you to have different objects on here. I expect it to be differently arranged, different theme of colors in the background, and really make it your own. Alright, so this is done, and I know that you're going to make something even more gorgeous than this, and I'm excited to see how you do your visual journal.